there's a fundamental flaw in the entire discussion between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump about the future of Ukraine, and that is that Donald Trump, or indeed Putin, can dictate terms about the future of a sovereign nation in the form of Ukraine without the presence of Ukraine there. There is no real point in Donald Trump meeting with Vladimir Putin without the presence of Volodymyr Zelensky, and the Ukrainian president has not been invited. Now, this is a position that the Ukrainians have taken, the Europeans have taken, and it stands very hard against the positions taken by both Putin and Trump. But if you look at their positions where they accept or demand that Ukrainians should be before any ceasefire is implemented, you can see that they're really in the same camp. The Russians and the Americans agree that there should be some kind of territorial concessions, significant territorial concessions made by Ukraine. Donald Trump talks about a swap, but that's actually swapping occupied Ukrainian territory for unoccupied Ukrainian territory. It's all Ukrainian territory that's being discussed. In the Russian case, they say that before they've even got a ceasefire, they want the Ukrainians to concede that Zaporizhia, Kherson, Donetsk and Luhansk provinces, all of which have been partly or wholly occupied by Russia, be handed over entirely to the Russian Federation, even though those areas that aren't under Russian occupation are actually obviously behind Ukrainian lines. That is an absolute constitutional no-no. It's not allowed under Ukrainian constitutional law. It simply cannot be accepted by Zelensky, and it has been rejected outright, as it has by his European supporters. They all do accept that there needs to be a ceasefire in Ukraine, but the basic principle here is that there should be an unconditional ceasefire that leads to negotiations where these sorts of concessions may or may not be agreed upon, and then of course the process of selling them to the domestic Ukrainian audience would follow. But on top of this, we have seen a significant increase, not quite a surge, but a significant increase in military activity on the Eastern Front in Ukraine by Russia, with an attempt to grab and control the main supply routes to the city of Kramatorsk in the east. That has been a dramatic development, leading Zelensky to repeat his statement that the Russians aren't interested in peace or a ceasefire, that this is all part essentially of a distraction to allow Putin to prosecute his military campaign. And I think that that is a position that is accepted by the Europeans. And the Europeans here are absolutely critical, because their spending commitment and spend that they've already made in terms of defending Ukraine is now up to 250 million euros in terms of commitment, compared to 114 million euros that's already been spent by the United States. And Donald Trump has very little leverage now over the Ukrainians, because he stopped supporting them militarily, insisting that the Europeans and other NATO members and Ukraine themselves actually buy American weapons essentially on the open market from the United States. There's been no more gifting of American weapons to Ukraine, a pro-Western European democracy that's been attacked by and occupied by Russia.